You're listening to ChainLeak, the crypto news podcast with your host, Joshua Roomsberg. Follow and subscribe today.
Welcome to the ChainLeak podcast. I'm your host, Joshua Roomsberg. Today's episode is about WChain, the future of payments, with the co-founder, Anish. Welcome to the show, brother.
Thanks, Joshua. It's been a while since we've been wanting to talk, but today we get the opportunity.
Yeah, no, it's been. I was telling you earlier, it's been a couple years in the making, putting the show together, and we finally, both with our scheduling conflicts and other things that haven't been able to put this together, but here we are. So, give the listeners an introduction to WChain and what you guys are building for the industry.
Joshua, we've been in the payment space for a very long time. I've been in the payment space myself, and I worked with the likes of MasterCard, American Express, and whatnot. And then, of course, we started the OneSpay business as well. The idea behind building these different technologies was to kind of bridge the gap between the emerging technology and traditional payment ecosystems. So the birth of WChain is, think of it as it's Bitcoin and banks had a baby, where it kind of bridges the best of both the worlds. While we were developing several other applications and products over the last couple of years, we also saw there was always a stutter step between what payment ecosystems offer and what blockchain is able to offer, and how do you combine them seamlessly at the same time. So that's what WChain plans to do and offers. We are very excited about the soft launch, which has already happened, and there are lots of things in store for the next couple of months.
Okay, now WChain as a whole, is it positioned for end retail users or businesses?
WChain will always operate, so it's an infrastructure layer. The layer one will always operate in the background. It's a public layer. The community or developers will have an opportunity to develop on it, build different programs. We ourselves would be developing a lot of different array of programs and applications. From a consumer standpoint, the end consumer would only be actually working or interacting with end products. So these could be applications, these could be internet banking applications, these could be DEXs, these could be SEXs, or many different kind of applications which will be built. But their interaction with the chain itself would be limited. The chain would interact more with developers, with businesses who would actually use this as an infrastructure layer.
Okay, now is the blockchain itself a hybrid infrastructure with a public and private chain running parallel? How does that work?
So it's a hybrid infrastructure. We have right now out there is a layer one. We are also working now on a layer two, which basically then goes to address a lot of things that we are trying to address with institutions, with programs that we're trying to do in Africa, in many other parts of the world, where these are payments these are technologies which are addressing real world issues, but at the same, and they are decentralized, but at the same time, there is some level of control from a regulatory standpoint. And that's what layer twos offer for us. So for us, it's going to be a hybrid ecosystem, both layer ones and layer twos working simultaneous and parallel.
Is there a specific use case for when you would use a layer one versus the layer two infrastructure?
I think the layer one infrastructure is out there already. It's something which is for anybody and everybody to build upon. We are also launching many other programs, incentive programs for developers to get involved with the layer one. The layer two infrastructure is more targeted towards our B2B clientele and customers that we're already working with. And layer two kind of is built more purposefully. Wherever there's a purpose, there's a need. It could be real world assets, it could be tokenization, it could be programs related to salary disbursement, healthcare payments. and many other things. So these are more payments or programs which are operating in regulated environments, whereas layer one is out there um, for public consumption.
Okay, now with the two different layers to the
Mhm.
W chain infrastructure, is there a difference in the transaction throughput for the overall chain, whether it's individual on these different layers or overall as one? Is the transactions per second, the cost per transaction, is it the same between the layer one and layer two of this infrastructure?
No, the answer is yes and no.
Okay.
So there is, of course, a cost infrastructure which is already in place for the layer one. In several cases, so we are going to be building products on two different aspects: key turn products, or basically products off the shelf,
Yeah.
where the pricing structure, the cost structure would remain pretty much standard both for layer one and layer two. Or then we have other kinds of products on the layer two, where which are purpose built for a certain product, right, or a certain market segment. Over there, we have the opportunity of adjusting pricing. We have the opportunity of making it cheaper. So let's say if you're doing a program for distribution of welfare, over there, the pricing is going to be much more different, or it's going to be zero pricing. It could be based on a program-based pricing or a program-based fee structure. So
Okay,
there are
that's
all
pretty
those bells
cool.
and whistles. Yes, so we are able to adjust that because over here, I think the deterrent with real world adoption of blockchain has also been cost, and how it amplifies cost in certain segments, because the cost of managing blockchain is pretty high. Um,
Now, let me stop you there. You mentioned earlier about something that ties back into the medical payments or something similar. Now, I was just thinking when you talked about the different fee structures on the layer two, when you tie that into whether it's medical documents, medical payments, different things like that between insurance companies or something similar, that's a situation where it could be a standard fee, but at a lower rate because you're getting more volume. If you have a million people that are running their insurance payments through that layer two, you could work with that insurance company to lower the cost per transaction because they're having a higher throughput. So, is that something that you guys have thought about as well?
Yes. So, in
Okay.
fact, some of the programs that we are working on, and there is a very interesting program that we're working in Bali right now, where the cost of transaction is actually zero,
Okay.
but the cost of the program is different, and where that cost is being taken over by the government.
Okay.
Where so there's a cost to the program, but the cost of running the ecosystem is a lot lower, or it's close to zero, and
Okay.
that's because traditional payment ecosystems, if you were to build them and then execute them, there's a cost to it. Even the ecosystems which are currently available, there's a cost to it. But we have gone for a dynamic pricing model, where pricing could be at the program level, it could be at the transaction level, it could be at the distribution level, it could also be at the consumption level. So there are different aspects and different checks and balances that we have based on what program we are going for. But those are only available on the layer two.
Okay. Now,
Yeah.
from a business perspective, I'm trying to think of how that would break down from a business owner perspective. Would it be similar to a leasing agreement to where you have a one time standard fee and that puts you through for the full year? And then you guys renew the next year or work out a 10-year contract together. Is it something like that?
So there are different models. So there is software as a service model, where you basically take the tech from us and we give it to you, and you could run it on a
White
license,
label it?
white label it, or you could run it on a per transaction fee model, a revenue share model. You could also look at where you basically take the tech from us, but we do the maintenance. We're not involved with the revenue share or nothing. So there are different kind of models. There are different kind of cookie cutter models that we are working on. But again, something which we are building or bringing in as best practices from traditional payment ecosystems into this hybrid payment ecosystem.
That's so cool. Now, you guys also have KYC integration. What does that look like?
So it's basically through a third party application, and it has been integrated. So it's the first time that a blockchain is working with a third party in a real time basis. It's something really, really interesting. I don't have the exact specs at this point in time that how exactly it's going to operate, because it's still in a test environment. So I'm not able to talk much about it. But it's
Okay.
something with which we are working with one of the industry leaders, and we will be disclosing that partnership very soon as well. And it's basically a two-way communication, which is happening real time to do KYC.
I'm trying to think the third party from the third party perspective
Mhm,
on hosting a KYC service on chain.
mhm.
What does that look like that ties it back into the chain? Is that something you could speak on?
Not at this point in time. Again,
Okay.
that's something which we are there. It's already in a test phase, and there have been some interesting discoveries. There are some security challenges as well of having
Right.
all the information on chain, and the decision that should we make it available on the layer one at this point in time, or keep it specific to a layer two. So what I can speak of is there is a program that we intend to do on the layer two once it goes live, with the KYC program, where receivers of grants from the government, and these are grants which are being given out to a certain category of people, um, they would be able to do their KYC on chain.
Okay.
And basically, the information is stored in government softwares or government systems on chain, and then the matching happens through the on chain
The
KYC
third party. Got
platform.
you.
So
Yep.
that is something which I can speak of what we are doing, but how we're trying to integrate that into, because we want to bring that into the layer one as well. But that's something it's still in the works, and
Okay.
it's a way to go for us.
Now, when you're building out a new chain infrastructure, when you think about developers that are building on other chains, similar to Binance Smart Chain, Base Chain, Ethereum, Arbitrum, how do you bring those developers onto building with W Chain? Do you guys have smart contract capabilities? Are you able to build similar dApps that use that EVM ecosystem and coding infrastructure and tie it into W Chain?
See, the way W chain has been built, so we are built on Ethereum, and we've been forked with Polygon network.
Okay.
So it is EVM compliant. The idea here is we have used best of both the worlds, uh, Ethereum and Polygon, so that we can keep it as development friendly or developer friendly as possible, with very little learning curve. But of course, the way we take, or the way we are unique, is because we are more focused from a payment ecosystem standpoint, and the kind of things that we want to pursue on the payment eco standpoint. To engage developers, we are talking about several programs that would be coming out over the coming months, where there would be hackathons, there was marathons, there would be things where developers could start developing on it, and we would incentivize those developers. We are also looking at funding programs to build on the chain that we are that we interest that we see deem fit for the chain. We have also started actually working with a couple of other layer ones, who where we might be the last mile for those layer ones. So it's something very interesting that we are looking at. So that would also create a different kind of a community, where we are able to bring in best of both the worlds of two different kind of layer ones trying to interact and work with each other. And that's interesting, because some of the layer ones have reached a certain size where they're not able to cater to a certain market segment, and we are very open to work on those. So we are okay to be the second in certain markets, and take on that market business, but then still feed into that layer one, through different applications and infrastructure. So there are a lot of things which are going on right now, and I think the team has been very smart the way it has been thought of how to build this out. It's a very modular infrastructure, which allows us to 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 connect different aspects of the chain into other technologies which are available.
Okay, now you mentioned that W Chain is a fork of Ethereum that ties in Polygon. Which of the two networks transaction finality will W Chain take on when it launches?
It will be polygons because it's a lot faster.
Okay. Yep.
So it's actually based on Ethereum with a Polygon fork.
Okay.
So because we have tried to bring in the capability of Polygon, its transaction finality, and all those elements into the ecosystem, so that we can make it faster, we can make it a lot more efficient, because that's what you need from a payment ecosystem standpoint.
For W Chain, for W Chain being a fork of the Polygon network,
Yep.
do you guys host your own nodes or do you tie into the nodes on the Polygon network?
So we will be hosting our own nodes.
Okay.
It's an absolute independent layer one. So we've started with 9 nodes, and we are also going to be announcing towards the end of this month where the community can start participating in hosting our nodes. So that's the
Okay.
infrastructure which we are building on our own, and it's completely our own and independent.
Do you have any requirements for hosting your own node?
Yes, so we are coming up with those set of requirements,
Okay.
and it's actually being reviewed by the team. We pretty much know what we want, but we're just kind of going through the final details, finalizing a lot of things. It's a lot of work launching a layer one.
Right. I believe it.
And we've been through a whirlwind of things, so it's a lot of things that we're learning, it's a lot of things that are coming our way. It's we I think the launch has been extremely successful, so there's a lot of interest which is coming our way as well. So we are very happy, and so we're trying to tackle a lot of things at a lot of ends. But yes, validator nodes, public validator nodes, we are coming up with that by the end of this month, and there will be requirements.
Okay. Now, will the community have the opportunity to vote on different validator nodes, or would their only opportunity to participate in the overall network be hosting their own node?
So in the beginning, we want the community to host the nodes, right? And
Okay.
that's where we're going to start. But we are also coming up with a governance model, which may extend to the validator nodes as well, where the community is able to start voting on those validator nodes.
Yeah.
So there are some ideas we are toying with. These are not finalized yet. But again, when we announce everything at the end of the month, those details will also be made public.
Okay. Do you guys have a specific date or a goal date that you guys are looking to launch both the layer 1 and the layer 2 infrastructure?
So the commercial launch for the layer one happens on the 20th of March.
Okay.
And so what happened on the 20th of December was a soft launch. And basically
Is
we
that
are,
like beta testing?
so it's on the main net, everything is live.
Oh,
It's a
okay.
fully functional product. But what we wanted to differentiate between the soft launch and the commercial launch, and how it differentiates, is different elements which kind of make up to a commercial launch. So from 20th of December till the 20th of March, there is going to be introduction of validator nodes. There is going to be introduction of an ambassador program of a decentralized exchange, which we are dropping in 3 weeks time. A premium accounts section for our customers, or a community, and several other things, live programs, hackathons, and things. Those are now coming into effect. So what we had done was we will do a soft launch, and then with that we will start building on the ecosystem, bring it to a certain level of maturity, and then do a commercial launch, which would be a much larger affair um, from a layer one standpoint.
How
Now,
do you go ahead.
okay, now on the layer two, is it then does its debut in Q2 of this year, with a test net, and then it goes into a mainnet launch.
Okay, how do you bridge onto the main chain at this point in time? If I wanted to test out the network and see the capabilities at this moment,
Mhm.
how do I participate?
So it's a EVM compatible chain, so you can add on to your any of your wallets.
EVM wallets, yep.
Any AVM wallet you can add onto. What we are also doing from a coin perspective, the bridge and the migration portal is going live by the end of this week, if I'm not wrong,
Okay.
where people would then be able to bridge their coins to from different chains onto the Watts chain as well. And similarly, there will be a migration portal for our own WCO coin. Towards the end of the month, of course, there's going to be introduction of the DEX, a decentralized exchange, which then also creates a lot of other opportunities to start using the mainnet. In the interim, we are building, or we are also facilitating building some arcade games, and a lot of other small projects that we are involving with, so that there is people can start feeling how the chain operates, how fast is it, and things like that. Also, at the same time, we are doing bug fixes and whatnot in the back end to see. So we are scaling slowly. We are scaling at a decent rate, so that by the commercial launch, it kind of reaches a certain point where the traction is a lot more, and it becomes a lot more. It becomes a product which people can look and feel.
For the commercial launch of the network, are there any specifics for cross-chain compatibility? Will you guys be bringing USDC, USDT, Ethereum onto the W chain? Are there any specifics you have at this time?
There are a few discussions which are in the works. And again, because of the decentralized exchange, which is coming towards the end of the month, early next month, there is, of course, opportunity for us to bring in a few coins, which we'll be bringing on to for the commercial launch. So those details, again, are in the works at this point in time. Specifics, I'm unable to share right now because it's not firm. But with the decentralized exchange and the commercial launch happening after that, there will be certain coins which would be porting over to the W chain.
Okay. Now, with that commercial launch, do you guys have any specific products or partnerships that you could mention today that will come to fruition during that commercial launch?
So, like I said, there would be a partnership with the layer one that we are working on, which is going to be very, very interesting. Another large layer one that we are working on, which would come to life. There would be some exchange partnerships, again, not mentioning any names at this point in time, but there would be some exchange partnerships that will also be coming up, where W chain would be supported, and also the W coin will be supported. We are also looking at some custody partners who would be coming on board to support the ecosystem, and some other ecosystem partners. So the likes of the KYC providers, or on rampers, off rampers, liquidity providers. So there are all of those in the works, and we will start announcing them towards closer to the commercial launch date.
Okay. Now, you also have a background with working for MasterCard.
Yep.
Do you have any want or desire to tie in debit and credit cards into the W chain in the future? And would it be through a third-party provider, or would it be directly on chain? And what would that look like?
So, this is interesting, and we are working on it. So we are bringing the prepaid cards to W chain, and they will make their debut no later than Q2 this year. And it's something which is very interesting that we're working on. It's a prepaid card. It's a metal card. You can have it you can have it on your application. You can have it on it's a Visa card. It's not a MasterCard, but it's a Visa card. And
that's crazy.
And it will be available to most of the world. We will have decent spending limits. We are working with a partner who is actually the issuer of the Visa card, because we can't be. You have to be a financial institution to be an issuer.
Yeah.
But it will be branded as the W chain card, and it will also connect to our premium accounts and our decentralized exchange. And the beauty is that you don't have to convert to fiat. You will have a fiat value every time reflective on your account, and with that fiat value, you can go and make a transaction.
That's cool. That was a big thing I used to like about, there was a spend card, And the spend infrastructure was built like that to where you could swipe your card and you could pay in Tron and
Yeah.
it would deduct the Tron value without converting it. I used to love that. Now every day I use my crypto.com card, and to use that card, you have to sell the asset, convert it into USD, and then top your card up. It's like a 4-step process to where it's like, man, that old infrastructure for spend before they sold the infrastructure to a third party now. But before they sold that infrastructure, I used to love that you could just top up your wallet and then you could choose which asset you wanted to spend. That was beautiful. So you're saying you would have something similar to where you wouldn't need to sell the asset, you would just spend dollar value in your asset?
So we are going a step forward.
Okay.
And what we are doing is you are able to set a hierarchy of assets that you want to be deducted at the point of transaction. So you might say, I want to make a transaction for $100, and
Yeah.
my first in my first hierarchy is my USDT. My second hierarchy is USDC. So it will check for your balance in your USDT.
And it would go down the list
It will
until
go
you
down
make
there,
up that 100.
but it will not decline the transaction.
Now
So
that's cool. I'm thinking to build on that concept, is there a way to do a percentage based valuation for your transaction to where if I wanted to do 2% in Bitcoin,
yeah.
5% in XRP, another 10% in Algorand, if you could break it down individually like that and then do another 10% in W chain, is there a way to break it down by percentage, or am I thinking too far ahead?
No, you're not thinking too far ahead, and that's a very interesting idea. We should take back and see if we can develop on that. The
Okay.
only challenge is, I think, it's the feed. It's the rate feed, and from a consumer
Yeah, that's a
experience,
lot. That's a lot of API pulls to
yeah,
for if you got a million customers using that. That's a lot of
yeah.
info. Yep.
And for a nanosecond transaction, it's a lot. It's a lot to
Yeah.
put the system through. So that's the only challenge. But otherwise, we are bringing in the concept where as long as you have a value, you can go and make a transaction. You don't have to stand in front of the teller making a transaction first to sell your USDT or USDC and
Yeah.
waiting for it to come. No. So we will be funding a certain value in your fiat account already, and then you can make a transaction, and we do back-end settlements.
Are there any specific currencies that you guys would tie back into comparable to USD or digital yuan, things like that, to where a rupee? Are there any specific currencies that you guys would like to tie back into when it comes to a real world value?
Currencies, as in you on the card.
I don't know if it, yeah, I guess the card would be one main aspect. I'm
Yeah,
thinking for the data itself that you
yeah.
would like to pull against.
So at this point in time, when we launch, it
Yep.
will be all pegged to the USDT. Of course, there is an
Okay.
option where you could do a drop down and select your local currency on which you're transacting. There
Okay.
is also an option which gives you, if you are transacting, let's say in a euro, but of course your wallet is tagged to a USDT, it will give you the exact amount that is being debited and the foreign exchange rate next to it that is
Okay.
being charged. But you know the world is right now adopting stable coins everywhere.
Yep.
That would give us the opportunity
That'd
of
be the base.
that would be the base. That would become
Okay.
the base wherever we can. So in some of the African countries, I think we'll be able to achieve that pretty soon because of our relationship and the programs that we are doing from a what's base side perspective. But wherever we can't, it will be currently pegged to the USDT. But wherever as and when stable coins emerge, we would work very heavily to start doing that because I think that's a game changer.
Okay. Now, when it comes to the commercial launch of W Chain, are there any specific locations in the world that you guys would like to emphasize for this launch?
See, for us, I think the adoption is going to be more in Middle East and
Okay.
in the African continent. We are also looking at because of our payment products, of which we are tying to this. We are looking at the Latin American market. because it's a huge market. There is a lot of there's hedging against their local currency already on crypto and whatnot, and there are lack of payment products. So I think with the prepaid card and other options and the decentralized exchange and other options that we are able to provide, that would be a very interesting market for us. So these are the markets where we are looking at pushing the product a lot more. But of course, like I said, we are also allowing developers to start coming and developing on the chain. So wherever there are applications, wherever there are requirements, so we are doing some work in Indonesia. We want to do some work in Philippines as well. So there are different markets that we are looking at. India has recently announced very nice upcoming regulations around payment products and blockchain. So we are looking at that. So it's always good to
That would be huge. The
right.
amount of people in India, that's mind blowing to have them accept crypto.
Yeah.
Now, overall, for the next 3 to 6 months, what do you see as the future of W Chain?
I think for the next 3 to 6 months, first of all, we want to establish ourselves as a strong brand. It's a
Okay.
new brand. We want to establish. We want to create community engagement. We want to be very cautious in which markets we go into. Have completely regulated network or framework ready. So there's a lot of things which are happening. See, with a public chain, it's not a complete hands-off approach. It's a public chain, so we are not responsible. We have to be very, very responsible in where the chain is being used and for what purpose, because we are answerable. So I think those things are very important. And so what we want to do over the next 3 to 6 months is going to be a non-stop product launches, such as, like I said, the decks, the prepaid cards, and whatnot. Along with a lot of products, also comes a lot of consumer education, community education.
Okay.
We have a track record of not being very good at that, but we're trying to work at that and getting better. But I think the team is doing a fabulous job. Um, Also, at the same time, we're building the team. So we are kind of spread across. So there is development which is happening in Singapore. There is development which is happening in Tokyo. There's development which is happening in London. There is development which is happening in Dubai. So we're also trying to then bring all of that together, and bring some more. How do we manage this as on an ongoing basis? So there is a lot which is going on. So there's going to be a lot of marketing activities. There's going to be some fun stuff, some events that we are planning. Hopefully, with the first event possibly happening in Dubai around the commercial launch time, and yeah, so there's a lot of action and very less.
Okay. Now, the last question for the interview today
Mhm.
is for the future of payments.
Mhm.
Do you see them wallet to wallet on chain transactions? Or do you think we tie back into the debit and credit cards and we bring the blockchain to the existing infrastructure? Where do you think the overall industry needs to progress moving forward?
I think we have not even touched the tip of the iceberg yet. And payments have pretty much stayed very similar or very same over time, right? I mean, it's always a payment is you're born, you start making a transaction. You die, somebody makes a transaction to give you a funeral. That's how payments
Yeah.
work. But I think what's interesting is now the evolution of AI and how automated payments are also coming into picture. So
Yeah.
with that comes automated technology, refrigerators which can order for themselves. So you don't really need a payment authorization. So payment authorization is also very obsolete. In
Oh, that's a good one.
right? And that's something that we are also looking at, that how authorizations may not be only two-factor authentications or not biometrics, but it could be something which is deep linked and deep embedded into the ecosystem and how these things work. So there are all those things that we are looking at as well. So I am not too bothered about the form factor. So it could be a wallet, it could be a credit card, it could be a debit card and whatnot. But what actually happens in the back end, the three-party model or the five-party model, that needs to change.
Okay.
And that is currently changing. And with that, We can't make it more efficient because it's efficient. You click a button and the transaction goes through. But we can make it a lot more scalable. We can make it a lot more secure. We can make it a lot more usable, which where for the non-financially included people, or for financial inclusion, or for disbursement of resources and whatnot. So I think that's where a lot of work needs to happen, and that's where we are also focusing our energy on at this point in time. So yes, there are we are also testing a product on something with AI on authorization, and how that could completely change the game. But that's again a very, very nascent stage.
Yeah. Yeah, no, that's another thing I wanted to ask before we go here is, where do you see artificial intelligence tying into the payments aspect of the industry?
Like I said, I mean, there are certain redundant steps in the payment industry, right? The entire cycle of auth clear settle is, or authorization clear settle, as we call it, for payment veterans will understand.
For you MasterCard guys over there.
But is a very redundant step, and it's very complex, it's very cumbersome, and I think that's where AI could play a real game changer role, of making it a lot more automated, a lot more. You don't need people for that. You don't need
Yeah.
systems for that. You need probably AI. You need proper algorithms. You need systems for that, because with so many years of data, we know what goes on. We know where there's fraud. We know where there's a challenge in the payment ecosystem, right? So, I think that's the next place where, and because we are in this field, so we see there's a lot of development happening. There is also resistance from large corporations to actually
Implement it. Yeah.
to
They might
revenue.
not understand it. They might not want to go that direction. They like the way their systems already work. They don't want any change, but them are the type of people that get left behind. When you look at the transition of, I seen something yesterday about the mobile phone industry, and how Nokia was one of the top 2-3 brands for the 80s and 90s, and then it just disappeared.
Yeah.
As soon as the iPhone hit, it was like game over. Then Samsung came, and
Yeah.
nobody uses Nokia anymore, and they had that opportunity. And then you think of Blockbuster had the opportunity to buy Netflix, and they
Yeah.
were scared of the technology. We don't want no part of that. But then Blockbuster's gone. So I definitely see that. The people who don't want to adjust, they
Yeah.
will get left behind. So this is the time in this new generation of technology. You have the opportunity now to learn and develop this infrastructure before the transition happens. And the people who build it now will have the opportunity to grow and prosper moving forward.
I agree absolutely. I mean, there's a lot of change which is happening. That everything is on the net. You can see, you can feel, and people are looking for innovation, right? So we are in the times of innovation, and I think that we're just starting.
All right. Well, this has been W Chain, the future of payments with Anish. Thank you for being here, brother.
Thanks, Joshua. Thank you for your time today. Thank you.
All right. It was a pleasure. Have a good day.
Thank you.
The Crypto News Podcast with your host, Joshua Roomsberg. Follow and subscribe today.